you see it says private chat. You can write to Dylan there, and only Dylan will see it. And then the chat thing on your right will open up the actual YouTube and LinkedIn chat.
Got it.
You can reply there to YouTube, but not to LinkedIn because, LinkedIn.
I just changed my microphone. Is that better? Can you hear me still?
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right. I think we're live. Double checking YouTube, make sure we're actually here. We are indeed. Oh, turn that volume off. All right. All right. I think we are all good. How are you?
What's up, sir? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We got all our logistical chat done. We're live. People will be jumping in here shortly. And I generally start out by just having you introduce yourself and who you are, and you don't need to talk about why you're here because we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I think you said you want to get in trouble today, so let's. I'll let you lead. I don't want to get you in trouble, but I'm happy for you to get me in trouble. I like trouble. So
I love it. Well, for those that don't know me, my name is Dominique Henderson. I typically go by Dom, just so I make it easier on everybody. But I've been in the financial space for, it's odd to say this, close to 3 decades now. So I started at a hedge fund, did the whole thing, left, did some real estate, watched probably too much Flip That House, to be honest. And right around 2007, I got my Life and Health 766, built a book. The broker dealer got bought by Mass Mutual. I decided not to go. Good decision because I cut my teeth with a independent RIA, now independent RIA. He moved twice from wirehouse to hybrid to then independent RIA. Learned a lot. Went out and branched my own firm almost 10 years ago. 10 years ago this August, my RIA, and I've been doing it ever since. And in the midst, I started this whole consulting thing with career changers and aspiring financial professionals, and now RIA owners. And maybe about 2 future proofs ago, I ran into this weird dude named JD Bruce, who at a time was working with some other beautiful, smart individuals, and we took a liking to each other, and here we are now. So.
And it's okay. We can call it Herbers and Company, where I was.
All right, very good. I just
for about a year and a half. They're great friends, and love them the most. So anyone who wants to work with Herbers and Company, my seal of approval for sure.
Yeah.
So met there on the beach at my hometown. I showed you all the places where I'm like, I kissed a girl behind that billboard, and ran a marathon over there, and I hid from the cops over there. In Huntington Beach, you have to do a lot of hiding from the cops. They're a little fast.
No, I could see why. It has that vibe. The rebellious teenager vibe, basically.
Yeah, I was a little of that. I know that would surprise everyone that as a teenager I was also breaking rules.
Now this is good. I think I have a lot of what I would call HSOs or hot sports opinions about the industry.
Right.
And I just want to be as valuable as possible to your audience.
Obviously, or at least as entertaining as possible.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on the career changer side as far as skill set and I would say skill stack that is the most appropriate for someone using the financial services industry or profession as their second act or third act. So we can definitely go there. I think there's a lot of things on my mind about advisors that are already in the industry and how they're leveraging different tools to get in front of their ideal client avatar or ICP. Or we can just talk about the politics of the whole machine too, because I believe that's kind of interesting. And I think it's going to change, actually. I think it's changing in some regard very slowly, but for the better, in my opinion. So.
Excellent. Always happy to talk about the politics of the industry, although let's stay away from actual politics because
for various reasons, right? Why, like we don't want YouTube banning us or anything like that.
Yeah, or people showing up at my door.
Either way, right?
Yeah, terrifying. All right, but so what do you want to talk about first? What's your first hot take we want to get in trouble
I've
for?
been out of the career changer game for a little bit, like the day to day of it. I guess I would be curious of what you're seeing. I think the skill stack that I've most heard RIA owners look for when it comes to talent is the things that wildly enough the industry doesn't focus upon enough, right? Is like they focus so hard on the technical stuff, and God bless Michael Kitces and Carl Richards for all the stuff that they put out there, and Bird's Eye View and all that kind of stuff. But over and over, I hear RIA owners saying, or heard them say, "Hey Dom, can you find me the person that has, all these, let's call it soft skills," and we can double click on that in just a second. And I can teach them the technical all day, right?
Easy. That's so easy, right?
I've always thought so. I mean,
I'm not saying it's easy to learn. There's a lot to learn. You know what I mean? Like I got my CPA, I took the CPA exam. I've done all the exams. I'm not saying it's easy to pass the test. It's a really hard test. There's no question. But like from a skills perspective, it's easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you got to think there's going to be some little nuance or set of nuances across every firm and every RIA owner. So, just because you know how to run, let's call it Right Capital, not to pick on those guys, right? You know how to run Right Capital, you know how to do plans and all the kind of stuff in Right Capital, but they use e-money. So I can see how an RIA owner is like, I want them to understand the conceptual overview of how we plan, regardless of the software we use, right? Because that's going to change from firm to firm. And I've been beating that drum for a while. So that's nothing new, but I don't know. I'd just be curious if that's something that you've noticed when you're
I still see the bias. I still see the bias all the time. Anytime I talk to a client. Now, I'm not directly placing people at this point. I was running a consulting firm with Herbers and Company for a while, and we aren't. We shut that down when I left, and we learned a lot from that. And the biggest thing I learned is how much of that there's a binary bias. They want entry level people who have no experience at all, or they want experienced people. And when they define experienced people, as Vilas said in the chat, he was having trouble finding associate roles where they don't have 3 to 5 years of client-facing experience, right? Or what I've always heard is the mythical 1 to 3 years experience for an entry-level hire, which is it's going to make my blood boil if I stay too long on the 1 to 3 years experience for an entry-level hire. I just want to, like, what did they do in that 1 to 3 years that you think is valuable since they're looking for a job now? Like, come on. Like, do you really want that? It's like, yeah, it's like preferring to date someone who's already divorced, who's recently divorced. You're like, well, that might be fun, but like, there's going to be baggage, like no matter how well it went. Right.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I do find that I'm seeing more firm owners who are looking to grow look outside the industry for people with experience, whether it's relevant or not, saying, oh, you were an engineer for 10 years. So yeah, I can turn you into an advisor, or you were a CPA, or you were a high school teacher, or you were, whatever they were. Right. And because all that career experience is so valuable, and you have these people who they're already the advisor to a lot of people. They've been mentors, they've been leaders, they've been supervisors, they've been business owners. They've been people who know how to give advice. And knowing how to give advice is a way hard. When you talk about soft skills, what they really mean, I think, is knowing how to give advice in a way that people can hear. And if you can find one of those people, I don't care if their whole background was working at a yarn store, right? If other people go to them right now asking them questions, especially asking questions about money, then they're your people, and they will figure out the technical stuff, or they won't. And if they don't, quite honestly, I use the people who didn't pass through our training program as our best source for operational talent. Because now all my operational people have been trained as advisors.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think the anecdotal evidence in my career has shown that. In fact, so I have an interesting role now where I am the head of the advisor development program for Proxy Financial, and we bought a book in LA recently, and we went back to LA to install that practice. And all three of the two selling advisors and the two advisors taking over that book in the office, the two selling advisors, both career changers, older guys, and then the two, let's call it transitional advisors, former CFO and then former director of operations. Really sharp, bright people, but you're right. Their books are growing and they transition really well, and they're acclimating to the technical stuff, but they're good advisors. So there is definitely a primary skill set. And look, I think we have to address the elephant in the room. It's like, the industry is pushing people towards CFP and all these designations and stuff like that. And I think that's great, in within reason. So like, here's where I'm probably going to be unpopular for at least the people that sell the CFP program. I don't think that, like, people used to always ask me, say, so Dom, should I take the CFP? And I go, under a couple of circumstances. Number one, if you're already in a financial planning program doing all the coursework, take the exam. It's not going to be any fresher ever, right? And wherever you are in your life, if you're in the coursework, go ahead and take it. Or if you're working for an employer that will, your career directory is kind of tied to getting the CFP, like you're going to be able to rise up the ranks, then do it. Otherwise, wait. Like, there's no other reason for you to, this thing will be here. Trust me. And you need experience more than you need 3 letters behind your name. As a matter of fact, the way it's configured the last time I checked is you got to have 6,000 hours of experience, right? So like, I see people like, hey, I got to go do this. And whether you drop, 5, 10 grand, whatever, when I did it, it cost me about 10 grand. I know it's a little cheaper now. But until you have to get in and until you become a CFP, then you start paying your CFP fees.
But yeah, then it gets really
that part. But anyways, it's, in my mind, the way this works is you got somewhere close to, let's call it a 7 investment, 18 months minimum. It's going to take you 12 to 13. Maybe, let's say you're the best. 10 months to get through all the education.
Yeah.
Another 3 months to study. And that's if you time it correctly on a March, July, or November. That your classes are over 3 months before the next exam, basically. Yeah. That gets you very close to 18 months. And then you got to get 6,000 hours of experience, which is the equivalent of 2 to 3 years. Yep. So this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So I tell people to pump your brakes. Yeah. Truly pump your brakes.
No, that's fair. I got a lot of candidates who were looking, and I'd say, okay, what's your current plan? They're like, well, I'm not really looking for a position yet because I want to finish all the educational courses and then pass the exam before I start working. And to your exact point, like, well, great. You just cost yourself a year of your career, right? You can do all that while you're working. And in fact, I found that the people who are doing it while they're working frequently pass faster than people who don't. I've talked to, I knew one person who I talked to, and I think there's probably other stories, but I can't think of any other ones, who's starting fresh, no experience with the CFP, did all the coursework and passed the exam in 11 months. Instant job offer. She said that in the job interview. I'm like, done. Okay, cool. You're hired. You know what I mean? You're really fast. You know how to do this. She took the time. She had a sabbatical already scheduled. She's like, that's what I want to do in my sabbatical. That's cool. If that's your vibe, great. Go ahead. I don't know anyone else who's got it ever done in less than a year, right? Including CPAs, including, it's like, it takes time and energy, and oh my God.
Including so PhDs. Much. Yeah. It's hard.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard. No, and it does take time. So doing that, I'd rather you do it over a 3-year period than do it while you're working for me than do it over an 11-month period when you're not working for me.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Right? And I think it cements it better when you're studying what you're doing while you're doing it. I don't know. It just lands different. You're like, oh, that's why we learned that. right? You run across that all the time, because if you're in a good associate program, you're getting exposed to client situations that you're just not going to see on your own. You'll never be in that room, and so you don't ever get to see it until now. You've already learned all the technical stuff, and now you have to relearn it anyway in context.
I think it's a very similar dynamic to the person, and this is not 100% our client, but it's similar to the person that works their way through undergrad versus just the traditional student, right? They tend to be a little bit more well-rounded. At least my experience has been that case. They're just not just focused on one thing. Because let's just be honest, you're not going to be able to focus on just one thing as an advisor. You're going to be juggling several different things. And the reality is you won't just like have this day where I'm just going to do data input for cases and nothing else is going to disturb that day.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I work for myself. I can't get through 2 hours without an interruption.
Oh,
at least my dog's going to interrupt me, or someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I can't think. And there's nobody to bother me.
Yeah.
I don't know who's doing it. The bakery down the street, I could smell their bread cooking, you know what I mean? Like I need a snack. Like we can't focus that long term. I mean, look, some people can, I guess, right? And not my ADHD brain, but like some people I know, I hear theoretically mythical people who know how to focus for 8 hours a day or whatever. They exist, I'm sure. It's their superpower. Awesome. So for the other 99% of the population, like, especially the neurodivergent population, just forget it unless you get into hyperfocus. You can't maintain hyperfocus for a year.
Well, here's what I do. Here's my egg timer is my little
nice
hack. That's how I do it. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. My egg timer is, you have a meeting. You should probably get there. You're late already.
Well, self-awareness is also a good thing. Yeah, I think, I mean, when I'm looking at this, because if anybody's watching this and they're a career changing, like, okay, check the box. I was thinking about CFP. Maybe I'll wait on that a little bit, or at least be actively looking through or looking for work while doing that, or continuing my work while I'm doing that. What do you say to people on the other side of that, right? I've talked to a couple of people. I'm thinking about a person in particular that has done Hannah Moore's externship, amplified externship, I think twice. I don't want to say 3 times, but I know at least twice. And has taken the exam. Like, really, he's just kind of like waiting for to be hired. And he does a lot of stuff. Like his resume is very impressive. But for whatever reason, just haven't gotten a position yet.
It's tough. It is tough. And it's funny because I remember bragging to my other, friends running firms when I was running my firm. And I had a really, really good recruiting program, right? Like we would post associate advisor jobs and we'd get vastly more applicants than all my friends, right? I would tell them, like, and going back to like 2012, 2013, 2014, like the kind of mid-teens, I would go to my friends like, hey, every time I post a job ad, I'll get, at least a couple dozen candidates and you're getting 3, right? These days, like those numbers are 10x, right? Like now, someone who has a really good recruiting program will get 200-300 applicants. And those firms that are just kind of pretty basic, they'll get 100 applicants. I think Amplified Planning has done a really good job helping, build that pipeline. But a lot of people have been into it, right? Every custodian, every industry group has been out there pounding the pavement on, hey, this is a great career for people. And now you do have a lot of people who want to break into this career, both career changers and new grads. I've talked to many recent graduates who come to me and are like, hey, should I be at CFP? Coming straight out of school. And so you can see more and more of that as well. And so there is a lot more competition for, entry-level positions. And part of that, I think, why they're, I mean, just there's more people who now think this is a great career, and that's awesome.
Yep.
And now I'm telling all of those people who can't find jobs, go take the EA exam, or just get a little bit of tax prep experience doing like Vita or H&R Block tax course or whatever it is, because I think that's the next big growth area in terms of finding, a career. But what I have to say to them is, most of the people I know in their situation have gone through the externship. They're working on their CFP. They find jobs through networking, not through job ads. I don't have the data, right? So you can't quote me on this one, or you can try. I'll just get in trouble for making up numbers. But my guess would be, and I'm usually pretty right on my guesses, is probably half the jobs that are filled for entry-level advisors are never posted anywhere.
I think I would agree with that. I would one up you and say more than half, maybe 2/3, 3/4, at least from my conversations.
Yeah, I mean, the data is impossible to find, but like, you're gonna find some kid who you met or you went to, they talked to you. Like, I probably wouldn't ever post a job ad again in my entire career. Right? I'll look through my network and I'll find people who I know, who I've interacted with through the externship or through other things, that have reached out to me on LinkedIn, that have hustled and made themselves known to me. And I have hundreds of those people. So why would I go bother doing an ad where I'm now reviewing a 1-page resume on people who I don't know?
So you bring up a great point, because I was going to go somewhere, and I'm happy to share if anybody's watching this and they've seen me before, talk about the career changer stuff. I've always talked about the Champ Skills framework, and I'm happy to give away. I have a free offer that I can give to people that are watching this later, and maybe we can get into that. But
we'll put at least at the very least after this, put the links in the comments.
But before we go there, I want to double click on something you said, because I remember giving this advice. I have 2 pieces of advice, very, very direct to how to solve the problem we just stated, with how do I get a job, or how do I get myself at least in the running to be compared with other people, because right now it's like I'm at the back of the line type of deal. So the first one is, I remember telling a career changer 2-3 years ago. I've been going to Future Proof for 4 years, so at least 3 years ago, I said, Future Proof offers this breakout sessions where you get like 10 to 15 minutes with people. And I was like, you would do well, even if you have to spend $2,000 on a ticket or this trip, but just do back-to-back interviews for 2 days. You're going to have about 24 interviews with RIA owners. Mm-hmm. Now, you will have to do something that I think precedes this. I'm going to make this strategy way more robust by, let's say Future Proof in Huntington Beach is in September. I think it's the second week of September. You could take 90 days before then. So let's call it early June. Spruce up your LinkedIn profile, start commenting on posts, start targeting people, get a group of people of, let's call them your ICP, RIA firms you would like to work with. See if those people are attending Future Proof, because all that stuff is out there. And then go interview with them or go talk to them when you go to Future Proof. Let's say you spent $2,500 doing that, not including your time. If you didn't get like some very solid leads from that, if not a job, I would be surprised. Same. But again, nobody's going to do the work.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Every single candidate I interviewed, 200 candidates over the course of a year, when we were running the Herber's recruiting service, 200 candidates, I gave them all one piece of advice. And I had one question that I asked every single one of them. I said, what's your list of dream firms that you would work for? Right? Your top 10, top 20, however many you want to put. What are your top dream firms in this country? Everyone that you would just drop everything to go work for. Maybe 5% of the people had an answer to that, even 1 or 2. And then the 1 or 2 that they did have were people who had presented at the externship. So it was lazy research. You know what I mean? Yeah. There were a few people I asked, and they're like, hold on, let me pull it up. Do you want me to share the list with you? You know what I mean? Like, they were on it, or they had heard my advice before, and so they were ready for that.
And they're hired now, by the way.
They're hired, right? Those people are already done, right? Yeah. Some people go this quick. And here's the other thing. If you do that kind of hustle, what Dom just described, everyone out there listening, you've just demonstrated one of the primary skills of being a financial advisor, which is going out there, hustling, talking to people, and going to get clients. If you can't, it's the same thing, right? And if that's uncomfortable for you, I totally understand why that's uncomfortable for you. But also, I don't care what's uncomfortable for you. You know what I mean? Like, I know that, with hair this color, you know what I mean? We're like a different generation than some of these people looking for jobs right now, but like, it's okay to be uncomfortable and go out there and do some hustle. You sometimes just have to do that in a way that that is necessary. When I was at Price Waterhouse, I went by Jonathan instead of JD, so that if someone called me on the phone, I knew how I had to behave. I was fake for several years while I worked at becoming a professional, because I needed to have a particular persona, and I got good at it, and it got me pretty far. Now I have to demask and figure all that stuff out, but that's a whole different.
I think the hustle. This is a hustle culture, and there's been too much of that term overused, I would say, around things that, in my opinion, you don't really need to hustle about. But this is one of those things, right?
Yeah.
This is I know a lot of people were probably listening and go, well, I don't want to go gather clients. I just want to sit back and tinker with financial plans. Okay, well, I mean, those operational jobs are even fewer and far between. And you got to be really good to do that.
Right?
If not already have experience. So
just go study tax then.
Yeah.
Because tax right now in this moment in time, right, is a career that you could just say, hey, I did one busy season with H&R Block. Who wants to hire me to be a tax preparer? And you're going to find a job like that, because the level of, and it's easy to get those like preparatory things, the H&R Block over busy season. You just take you take a class for a month. It's free. And then you can go and they'll give you hours. You know what I mean? And if you've sat through one busy season, I know a lot of firms that are like, yeah, just give me some people. I need people, right? There's so many tax firms that just can't find help. Have you tried to find a new CPA in December? It's impossible. They just aren't taking clients.
Yeah.
Unless you have lots of money, and then of course everyone's taking clients if you have lots of money.
Yeah.
But for the basic tax stuff, there's such a talent gap between the people who want to be financial planners and the people who want to do tax. And if you don't want to find clients, you're going to have an upper limit to your career as a financial advisor. That's just the nature of it. I would say the same thing if you want to be a lawyer, right? There's going to be an upper limit or kind of a side journey from your career. You're not going to go to a big firm and make the lawyer money if you're not willing to bring on clients. It's a huge value add as an advisor. And I'm not saying you have to do that to be a good advisor. I'm saying you have to do that if you want to hit the maximum kind of earning in a career.
Yeah, there's definitely a upper limit to your earnings potential if you're not going to have any business development in your job description. I mean, at the end of the day, the way I put it to career changers, aspiring financial professionals, is you need to think from an owner's viewpoint. And the reality is, I'm about to give you a salary. I'm about to give you benefits. And let's just call your first year's comp north of 60, 70,000 adjusted for geographical region. And I'm about to do that for 18 to 24 months with no ROI. That's the reality.
Totally.
And if you're not then I got to take someone off positive ROI for me to train you. That's the way you need to be looking at it. And so come to the table with some skills, with something that you can give, and to flatten that curve, because you want to talk about a J curve for a firm owner. That's pretty daunting, man. Like, I'm about to invest in this person. I could do all, and I have buddies, and I'm sure you do too, where they do that. They make the investment. They themselves train the people. So that's the highest ROI in the firm, only to lose this person in 2 or 3 years. Now, that's not always the person's fault. It could be the owner with some bottleneck stuff, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that the risk is real. And I think often career changers come at it from just one angle, and they're not looking at the side of the firm owner also, which is that, to me, that prepares you a little bit better for the conversation. Because, we start talking about these core skills. I'll run through them right quick. And if you want to double click on any of them, we can. But so CHAMP skills, I call them CHAMP skills, the acronym CHAMP, because it's capacity for learning is endless, right? You got to be a sponge. You have to have the ability to work with little nurse supervision. Can't keep on telling you the same thing to do over and over again, and you're not getting it. Ability to collaborate, which is more than just teamwork, right? It's the ability to read a room, because you're going to have to see a client's shift in disposition, because you may be doing Zoom meetings, not in-person meetings, right? You got to learn to ask really good questions. I used to call it master the firm's processes in tech, but it's really master of the firm's workflows, right? You got to understand workflows, like we talked about earlier. Can't just be,
and not just the ones that are documented, but the real ones.
Yes.
The ones that you look at what certain people are doing, and then see who's rewarded and who's appreciated for how they work, and then model yourself after that, which should match the written workflows, but doesn't mostly.
Because they haven't been updated or put in place ever. And then the last one is pursuing professional development, personal and professional development. So if you master those 5, when you're sitting across a person like myself or JD or one of our peers, like, you are well positioned to be front of the line type of candidate. But the point is all these things take work and effort, and you can't Claude or chat GPT your way to this kind of stuff. You have to actually put in the work.
Yeah, I mean, Vilas made a comment here that says, I think the hustle part's also a place that would be a helpful learning topic. Perhaps is where coaching comes in. Exactly. Yes. And like, what would you say to some of these people? You mentioned, I mean, what you described, I think, is the way. Go to LinkedIn, right? Make sure your profile looks amazing. Right. And just, if you don't know how to do that, just find a friend who knows how to make stuff look amazing.
Or go to my channel. I've done several lives.
My channel is right there. And that part is, look, just have some good judgment, have a good eye, right? That's going to show people who are hiring you that indeed you know how to create a presentation material that is relevant, because that is a core skill of a financial advisor, is know how to show people something that they can relate to. Big, giant skill, one of the top skills you could have. And then the idea of knowing how to reach out. I have given people this advice for years. When you add someone on LinkedIn, make sure you include a note. Don't just click connect, unless you already know the person, fine, whatever. But like, if this is a cold reach out, put something in the note of why you're reaching out, and ask them a question that they could easily respond to in like 2 minutes. So I had someone see that this Tolkien book up here, that's the Tolkien biography. I had someone, after a presentation I did, it was probably the externship or something. They reached out on LinkedIn, and they added me on LinkedIn, and they put in the comment. They said, hey, I saw you on the externship, whatever. I noticed on your bookshelf the Tolkien biography. I also love Tolkien. Which is your favorite of the Lord of the Rings movies?
There you go.
We chatted back and forth for 45 minutes.
Yep.
And every time they send me another message on LinkedIn, I'm going to see that thread. That's how to do it, right? Find common interests, see what they're interested in, read their bios, read all their LinkedIn posts. Hey, you posted something out a month ago on LinkedIn about this. Can I ask you a question about that? I think that is critical advice. Honestly, if you just did those 2 things, right? Make your stuff look good, and then reach out to a bunch of people with real conversation starters, and aren't, hey, I'm reaching out because I saw you in the externship. I really love, you're doing a great job. Thanks. Send. That's nice. I love hearing that. You know what I mean?
Like, but I don't have anything to do. You didn't give me an action item. Give me an action item. Right.
So I respond back, thanks. Love you. You're awesome. That's it. Right. I got nothing else for you now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, respond as a peer versus a fan. I say this all the time. Right. And you could be a fan, but if you want an interaction, like you just said, you have to respond as a peer. Yes.
Yeah. That's it. And you should, when you said go to Future Proof, which is, I mean, a fantastic idea, and they give students free tickets. You just have to get out there somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Road trip, like
Yeah.
you can get there for cheap. It's
Save
not
up
that
for it. Cancel
up.
your Netflix for a year, whatever.
Right? And it's beautiful. Huntington Beach is gorgeous. So you get there, you're actually then booking all these 15-minute conversations with all these firm owners. They would be coming, they can't come in as if they're going to get interviewed. They're coming in interviewing. And that is also my advice for anyone who's looking for work, right? When you walk into a job interview, you're in charge. You're interviewing them, right? They're going to ask you some questions. You're going to answer bare minimum, whatever you need to answer for them. And then don't wait for them to say, hey, do you have any questions? And if you do make the mistake of waiting for them to ask, do you have any questions? Don't say, no, I think all my questions are answered. Thanks. Which is 90% of what I hear when I say, do you have any questions? Because that is actually how I interview people. I say, I learn more from questions people ask me and the conversation around that than I ever do asking them prepared questions. And if they come in and are like, hey, thanks for this interview, I have like 100 questions about your firm and we don't have time for them all. How do you want to handle this?
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. Okay. They're like, okay, I read your entire website and here's this, here's that. Now, don't do the creepy thing, which I had one guy do, where he came in with a file folder and he opened it up and it had little bios that he made of each of us with our pictures on the page. And then he laid them all out in front of us all. Like,
that is creepy.
Bro, that's not.
That's not cool at all.
You gotta know the limits, man.
Yeah.
He also had his shirt unbuttoned down, like past his. Like, there was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever had.
Was almost his hair matted and was he sweaty?
No, he was fine. And this guy was probably 50 also, by the way. It's like he knew better. Pretty funny. Almost as bad as the time in an interview where we pointed at a financial chart and we pointed at the bottom of 2008. And we're like, what was happening here? And she goes, I swear to God, this was the response verbatim. She says, oh, when was that? 2008? Yeah, I don't know. I was in a cult.
Look, at least she was honest.
That one was legendary.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it. No, I think there's probably other instances, just to pivot back. I think there's other instances of like future-proof-esque opportunities.
For sure. Every conference has this kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, that career changers are just not like, so, and I might step on some toes here, so I apologize in advance, but it's done all in love. So I think most people that I've seen over, so Jumpstart is 6 years old now. So I've been doing this work largely until I pivoted last August to mostly working with RIA owners instead of people trying to get into RIAs. I've seen a large degree, like almost the bell curve of candidates pretty much be just lazy, is what I would call lazy. I think all the people that I've seen that have the hustle, and we can double click and define that for, is it Vilas?
Vilas, yeah.
Okay, Vilas. We can define that more granularly, but yeah, I think
he has a job now, so he's fine.
Okay, I don't know, man. So my dad was in the Army for 22 years, and I'm one of three, the oldest of military children. So I don't really have a high tolerance for what I would deem as lazy, right? If you're just sitting back and sending interview requests or asking, filling out 100 job applications a week or something, like I have no sympathy for you. Like, that's not hard work. Like that's not hard. I think doing some of the stuff that we said, like, what about spruce up your LinkedIn profile, buy a LinkedIn course. I actually sell one, and spruce up your LinkedIn profile, and then comment on 20 posts a day and send 5 DMs a day. Do that. Do Seriously. That for 30 days.
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? Those people don't hire you? Well, they're not going to anyway. So like, what do you have to lose? Be really annoying. I once hired a woman who showed up at every single speaking event anyone who worked at our company ever did. Like, if someone did a speaking event, she went to that event, she asked questions, she came up after, said, I really want to work for you. It got to a point where like, we got to hire her so she'll stop stalking us. We have to. or worry, or I don't know what's going to happen, but it's scary. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it earlier. The level of competition, it's almost like how content is out there, right? So almost 2 years ago, probably 19 months ago, LinkedIn started changing the way its algorithm understands content. And it really, some people lost visibility. And that's just because more content came out there, and your mediocre content is no longer seen. That's just exactly what happened. And it's happened across all platforms. Interesting stat. So let's call it 1 billion pieces of content being uploaded to any one of these platforms every day. 150,000 pieces of curated content is ready for your ICP. Now, this isn't like random stuff in ads. This is stuff based on their scrolling and their engagement history. And so it's Hunger Games for the top 8 or 10 things that they're going to watch before they get off. So every platform that sells ads knows that, and they're changing it.
Yep.
Same thing with this industry. Not the numbers aren't the same, but the point is people are flooding into it. There's 10,000 people, more than that now, that are taking the CFP exam every year.
Amazing.
And that is people taking the exam. That, of course, the number is bigger for the people that are going into the industry, going through the courses, not yet taking the exam, blah, blah, blah. The competition is getting stiffer. And that's just CFP. We're not talking about CHFC. We're not talking about CPWA. We're not talking about CFA. We're not talking about any of those things. Like, so, some stuff I did right before I pivoted is I was doing research, and it's just kind of anecdotal. I know Cerulean Associates gave us some numbers, like a 78% attrition rate in the first 3 years. Yeah, first year of this. I think by 3 years, it's probably closer to 90%. But this is also somewhere north of 500,000 people in this US calling themselves financial advisors, from life insurance agents to CFPs to that's a lot of competition, and it's growing. Yep. And so for you to sit back lethargically and passively just sending whatever you're doing from your desktop and thinking that's going to get you hired?
No. Well, because to your point, you're going to spend roughly probably 75 to 100 grand a year for whatever that training period time it looks like. And that's typically 2 to 4 years, right? So you're talking about almost probably all in, including everyone's like time and energy and costs. Like, you're probably talking about $500,000 to train a financial advisor.
I never thought about that way, but you're right. Yeah.
I want someone who's going to hustle. You know what I mean? Like, so I want someone who I don't have to push. Right. And there's plenty of people who are okay with that. And again, it's not just about the people skills, because you can do all this quote unquote hustling. And I do hate that word. You know what I mean? Like, because it is co-opted by bro culture and all that other bullshit, which isn't what we're talking about. I would say make connections to the point that you are uncomfortable making those connections. You know what I mean? Like, get to the point where you're always riding your comfort edge. Because if you're fully within your comfort zone, you're never going to be able to grow. And you got to be on that edge. You don't have to jump in the ocean when you can't swim. That's, obviously don't do things that make you feel unsafe, but it's okay to push yourself into things that feel a little dangerous emotionally.
Yeah, I would say if LinkedIn by far, I might hover here for just a second. So of all the social platforms that you should be on, not just from a consumption standpoint, but also a creation and R&D standpoint, right? Is LinkedIn. You get the most bang for your buck because there's no pseudonyms and aliases. Like, so I know JD is JD. I know Dominique is Dominique. I know Dominique works where he's working because it's right on his LinkedIn profile. I don't have to guess at that. And they used to have it. I don't know. They kind of shielded it now for privacy, but once we become first connections, I have your contact information, at least an email. Yeah. So here now I can take it off platform, and I can email you some stuff. Now here's something that, just parenthetically, that people don't think about. I think about it as a content creator all the time, but one of the coolest things, actually, let me flip it. When people do this to me, I'm usually pretty open to it. When people approach me and say, "Hey Dom, I've seen your YouTube channel, I've seen da 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 da," I think you could do this a little better, especially if they do it the right way. Here's a video that you did, da 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 da. And they just offer value out the blue. Like no no questions asked. It's just free. That usually speaks I always read those. I may not always respond. I may not always take up their offer, but I always read those. And so I think for the person looking for a job, just double clicking, giving you a little bit more value on what we talked about earlier, I think going to find out what JD's working on next and what he needs help with, or what Dom's working on next or what he needs help with, could be really helpful to you in your journey. And you never know who we're connected to. I know a lot of people. JD knows a lot of people. And although I may not have a spot for you, I'm probably talking to somebody in my mastermind or at a conference or a blah, blah, blah that might be hiring at some point in time. So it's like building your network, which is what you said earlier, I think just personifies the word hustle that we're talking about today. Like you got to build your network and you got to keep those people warm too. So,
yep. I mean, I did recently, I did this prospective advisor showcase, right? But 4 people interviewed me for a half an hour. Now it's up on my, up on my YouTube channel. Anyone can see it. They can use that to talk to people. The fact that I don't have 200 people pounding my door down saying, hey, I want to be on your next one is astounding to me. I don't get a lot of contact of people saying, hey, can I please do that? There's at least one person who's been on my YouTube show who was on my YouTube show because he said, can I be on your YouTube show? I'd never met him before. Right? We had a great conversation. I'm going to say, sure. Or I might say, no, sorry, we're backed up or whatever. But look, you've had a YouTube channel, you do content creation. Someone reaches out to you and it's like, hey, can I be part of your content creation journey and help you make something? And you don't have to think about it. You just have a guest that's going to show up. I'm like, yeah, how about Thursday? You know what I mean? Like, now look, are you going to get on Michael Kitcey's podcast with, or whatever, or you want to be on Joe Rogan? Probably not. Like that's, they're going to be a little more selective. So look for people who have 100, 200 views or whatever on their videos, and they're going to let you be on their channel. Right.
You got to start somewhere. I'm pretty sure, Seth Godin, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm doing my podcast 4 years ago. And I go, I want to do something different, and I just start reaching out to people. And I sent Seth a cold email. But here's the reason why he agreed to do the podcast. Because he saw my body of work online already. And he was like, this dude does stuff. And he told me that after our interview, he was like, I have a general rule that I will do everybody's podcast, at least if they have, 10 or more episodes in the past. Yeah. He's like, that way I know you've stuck with it. You've been trying to do it, and I'm going to try to help you out. And you never know when that kind of stuff is going to happen. You never know. Yeah, so like, you got to try.
Totally. I talked to a few people and they didn't do it, but I wish they would, of like, why don't you just go create a YouTube channel and just document your journey to your first financial advice job? Why don't you go and create a Substack and write about that journey and the journey of your education, constantly talking about what you learned every single day at the end of the day? Just write a little like, hey, this is what I learned in my studies this week, right? People would lose their mind over that. And yet that content is just not out there.
I would agree with that. I'm going to back this up with not just anecdotal. So when I started my YouTube channel, which has gone through a couple of iterations, the video that so context is I was just launching my RIA firm and I hired a YouTube coach, and she told me to make a video about day in the life of a financial advisor. And I was like, that's not how you attract wealth management clients. So I thought, but it spawned my coaching business, literally. Like the day in the life of financial advisor, I'm looking right now, was created on I published it March the 4th at March 4th, 2019. It has 75,000 views right now. Amazing. Almost my most popular video, day in the life of a financial advisor. And so I say this to say, like, you never know what eyeballs people are going to see, like what eyeballs are going to see your content. And I love that idea. It's like, do what you're doing, but just turn the camera on.
Totally. Just let me get to know you. Okay. We've spent a bunch of time talking about what candidates should be doing and career change should be doing. Hopefully they got the idea right now. But quite
Hopefully.
honestly, like if we think the candidates are lazy, the firm owners, man, whoa, it's not even close. Right. And this is what I've told all my clients, every single one of them for the past, I don't know, 4 years. I look at your marketing budget for clients and I look at the amount of effort and money you're spending on recruiting. And if those aren't equal, you're doing it wrong, or you're just deciding not to grow. And that's fine if you're not growing, but then it should still equal, because if you're not growing, then you don't need to spend all that time finding clients. But if you're actively finding clients, you should be spending just as much time and effort actively finding your next hire, even if you're not hiring this year. Create your pipeline. Just like you create your pipeline with clients, you need to create your pipeline for candidates. And to your point, you didn't think a day in the life of a financial advisor would help find wealth management clients. I think that is nonsense. Because, for example, if I were looking for an advisor and I saw a video of you saying this is a day in the life of a financial advisor, and I get to see how you work and go through your day while you're working for me, there's nothing better to market to me than showing me what you do when we're not on the phone. Right? That's hugely interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's true across all of this marketing. Everything you say to clients, you're actually marketing to advisors that might want to work for you. And everything on your careers page and every job description you write and every job ad you post, you need to think about as an advertisement for clients, because clients will see how you treat your staff and they will hire you because of how you treat your staff.
Yeah, I think you raised a couple good points, and now that I'm thinking back through it, I don't know exactly what content, because I didn't ask all the time, but most of the time I was bringing on new clients. When I was bringing on new clients, I would ask them how they found me, and like 60% of the time they were like, "I saw your videos." Now, I did videos on YouTube. I had videos on my website that were clips of my stuff on YouTube. It's all kind of stuff. But the point is, hands down, video was like one of the things that people were definitely finding out what I do that particular way. Thank you. So the thing that I think firm owners are afraid to admit is, yes, they are lazy, because, look, come on now, like after you get past year 5 in this business, like it's kind of downhill. Like,
yeah. Like, oh, I'm rich now, I guess I'm lazy. You know,
yeah, you're kind of coasted. You're coasted now. And granted, I have friends that would be like, "Nah, Dom, and I agree, they are. But I think the majority of firm owners would admit that, like, they're kind of, they're collecting checks. And that's not to say their job isn't hard and that they didn't earn that. What I'm saying is, I'm reinforcing actually your point is, if you're going to complain about, the absence of talent in this industry, but you're not going to actively put anything back into your business to attract talent. And here's another thing they're really lazy on that I want to talk about is the career path once somebody gets there. Now, I've talked to so many people that get frustrated after they work and work and work to get their job, and then they're there and it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, and everything's fly by the seat of their pants. Nothing's organized. There's no like, by 30 days, you should know this. By 60 days, you should know this. By 90 days, you should know this. By 180 days, you should know this, and on and on and on and on as you progress throughout the ranks, because that's what keeps people interested in working for your firm. They don't just want to sit in the CSA role forever. So, like, I think we need to talk about that too, because that's where a lot of laziness comes in also.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of unacceptable laziness, because quite honestly, all those people could call Dom or call me or call Herbers and Company or call their custodian or call Dimensional or call literally one of the 500 service providers in this industry that would literally give you a career path in a box. Like, here you go. Here's all the training material. Here's all the checklists. Here's what it should look like. Here's the compensation plan. It's going to cost them maybe 20, 30 grand in total consulting fees to get it implemented. compared to 500,000. I just said it's $500,000 maybe to get someone fully trained. Maybe you can be really good and do it for 250. And you're going to cheap out on 30 grand to hire a consultant to help you put in a career path, which is already, the work is done. And they could literally, if you go to Schwab, they probably just hand you a binder and it just has everything in it. And then don't make it your own stupid secret sauce. That's like, no, we got to make it match our culture. No, you don't. Just implement it and your culture will be fine.
Yeah.
Right. Just get it going. Have something.
Totally agree. Yeah. I think
it's the easiest thing ever.
It's really, yeah, I'll say it. It's really unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It is. I think, from a certain standpoint, you can't, and I'm trying to be sensitive to this, right? So let's just say you're solo like me, and then you go to your first hire, and we already know how much like oomph that takes to get to your first hire, right? Like you got enough to not only pay yourself, have some savings, but then pay another person. And then you go to the next and you go to the next. And then you're just like busy. And then you look up and you go, crap, I got an audit. Oh, crap, I got to get to these clients. And everything is just chaos. Believe me, I know it. I have these consultations all the time with people. And what I want to say is like, you're the bottleneck. It is what it is, right? Like, and how do you want to fix this? And no one wants to sacrifice anything, though. They don't. They don't want to sacrifice how much they're getting paid. They don't want to sacrifice how much time they're working. They don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to sacrifice it. I'm just like, you spend all this time building it the wrong way, and it's going to take you 3 to 6 months, maybe a year to correct it, and you don't want to. And and at this point, like I'm talking, 10, 15 years in the game. So now we're talking about valuation. Because you're not handing off your firm like a piece of jewelry or anything, right? You're going to get paid for it. It's an asset. And you're trying to say you don't want to make that investment?
Yep. Well, that's the thing. If you take away the word sacrifice and insert the word reinvest, it sounds more nonsensical. They don't want to reinvest for future growth. Well, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to reinvest for future growth. The first question I ask my clients is, do you want to grow or not? What's your end game? And I would say that a good half the firms in this industry should intentionally stop trying to grow, stop where they are. They're fine. They're making enough money. They're only growing because Schwab told them they're supposed to. You know what I mean? Because that makes Schwab's life better. They don't have to grow. Are you making enough money? Yeah, I'm making enough money. Okay, why are you wanting to grow? Well, because that's what you're supposed to do. And quite honestly, it's easier to grow a little slowly than it is to stop. But it's deferred work, right? If you grow unintentionally and you don't really want to create capacity for growth, but you do want to grow, well, it's going to suck. You're going to hate your life soon because you're going to get full. Instead of just saying, we like where we're at, let's stop. And this is our new future forward. And there aren't any rule books for how to stop growing a business, right?
That's a very interesting notion, but I think you're right. Because I talk to a lot, and I'm pretty sure you have too. Like people say, they either give what you just said. They say they want to grow, but they don't really have a rationale behind it. So that growth is going to be uncharted territory, and it's going to be really clunky, and it's going to be painful too, because it's not intentional mostly. And then the alternative could be just like, we're not accepting any more clients. We will allow them to kind of naturally move along and age and do all the things. And now we may just smartly, as people are getting older, bring their kids in. So we know that they're going to inherit the money, stuff like that. But yeah, like we've kind of closed our doors. But maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's greed or something like that. Like I haven't intentionally marketed in 4 years for my wealth management firm, and I just sold it. So, but my point is, if you were a client referral and I just didn't really, unless I just really wanted to do business with you, I wasn't advertising because I already knew I needed to hover between 25 to 50 clients so I can cap my time at 30% in my RIA so I could do the consulting. I already knew that. So I didn't have any more capacity.
Yep. And
I just think, for me, it was just about being intentional about what I wanted. And I did not want to grow. I don't want to manage people. No, absolutely not.
Well, and it's easier to do that when you're small. As you get bigger, imagine yourself with a firm with $4 million. Now imagine trying to figure out how do you stop that from growing, because that's hard actually.
No, I would
It
imagine.
takes it takes
But
some
you got
intentional
there some
strategy.
other type of way, and you were, I'm going to argue, not intentional enough. I'm going to say unintentional, not intentional enough on your way to 4 million. Because the RIA I left was about there too. And his thing was, I want to get to $1 billion. So he did want to grow, but he didn't have systems in place to grow.
Yeah.
So his growth, he can never, pull levers to make it slower or faster because he never was measuring how he was growing. And that's the problem with, I think, a lot of, it's like, put all these things in place so you can actually measure, like what you measure will grow. And you will be able to grow it because you've been measuring it. What does Marcus Lemonis say? Inspect what you expect. So it's like this idea that you can let organic growth happen and you won't ever be able to duplicate it. Like, you just won't.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah, I don't understand. Anyway, if you're out there and you're a firm owner and you want to, and you are someone who both has intentional growth. I mean, intentional is such an interesting word because most of our firm owners are accidental business owners. They didn't mean to, right? They got into it because they hated where they worked and then they started their own firm. Not all, certainly. There are some that are very intentional.
Yeah.
But I imagine asking some like tech bro founder in Silicon Valley what their end game is for their business. They will tell me who they want to buy them and what date.
Oh.
They're like, yeah, we're aiming for a Google acquisition in March of 2028. Right? They'll know exactly. It won't necessarily happen that way for sure, but like they'll know. They'll have an answer.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten an answer from a advisory firm when I say, "What's your end game? Who's going to own your shares next?" They're like, well, yeah, like they don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe one that has actually gave me an answer, and I'm saying
It's
maybe
rare.
they don't remember who did, but they just don't know because they didn't do it with an end game in mind. If you don't have an end game in mind, you don't have a destination in mind. If you don't have a destination in mind, it's really hard to calculate your journey and plan your journey because you don't know where you're going.
I think I have a theory as to why this is, and this might be a little painful as far as people have
For them or us?
For them, if they have.
Oh, good. That's
they have their
I think that's the theme of the show.
Like put your toes back under so I won't step on them. My notion is most financial advisors, great, competent men and women, financial advisors, are horrible business owners. And I think it happens because of the way the industry trains us. Now there are some exceptions, and I'll throw some names out because some of these places have very good sales training programs, which lends you more to that business owner mindset because you have to track your sales activity. You have to make sure you get a certain amount of assets in, And people probably know where I'm going with this, with the Northwestern Mutuals and the Merrills and the Like those people that I've talked to invariably have a better skill set bending towards entrepreneurship and business ownership. Typically speaking, the, let's say, traditional CFP student that comes out of, Utah Valley or, Texas Tech or whatever, they're great technicians and they will whip you up a financial plan like this, but they can't do business development out. They can't do that outside of a paper bag. Like it's just not going to happen. And so I think the business owner thing, and so this is something that I've been seeing. So you crest 1 million in revenue, and if you haven't already grown your team past one person, which is yourself, then you're looking for that next hire, and it depends on really what your next skill, that your most lacking skill set is, your blind spot. Because some people would say, "Oh, I need an executive assistant." I see that a lot with the rainmakers, but those people that are really not good business owners that have gotten there, it's almost like you need like this fractional COO to hire because you don't have the skill set, and you'll probably plateau at that revenue mark for longer than you should because you're really a good relational person. Like you're great at the relationship, and that's just what you need to do. If you start to try to run a business, like you just burn yourself out, and you're not really good at it. So that's what I've been seeing. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. People don't get those skills, and this industry talks about sales like it's a one thing, right? And it just isn't. I'm going to lay out 3 critical sales skills.
Okay.
And to reach the highest heights of being a financial advisor, you need one of them, right? And I don't think you can be a good advisor without this one skill, right? So we'll start from the bottom.
Okay.
That skill is being able to sit down with someone who wants to work with you and close that business. Someone says, "Hey, can I be your client?" You come in, you explain what you do, you explain what the fees are, you explain the value of hiring us as a financial, hiring you, you hiring me as a financial advisor. Explain that. I'm going to be your advisor, right? I'm not selling for the firm, I'm not selling for someone else, I'm not selling for my associate. You and me, we're going to work together. Look in my eyes. Do you trust me? We trust each other. Great. I think you should be my client. This is what it costs. That skill set, every single financial advisor who's working needs that. Or you're just a technician. And I don't mean just a technician, because that is a very valued skill set. You're an analyst. That's cool. But if you don't have that skill, I don't believe that you can sit down with a client and sell them on a solution to the problem that they're having. And I don't mean sell them like a product. I mean, just sell your idea. Like, hey, we're going to do this 1031 exchange for this real estate, sale you want to do. So we're going to sell that. We're going to take that. We're going to put it over here. It's going to save you this amount of tax. It's going to go here. What do you think? They're like, I don't know anything you just said, but I trust you. And so if you don't have that ability to engender that trust with your advice, that you know what you're talking about, even though they don't know what you're talking about, you're going to struggle to actually be successful in the advice process. So that's it. That's the base level sales skill. You have to be able to.
Let's pause there, because I'm hearing tenacity. I'm hearing closing. I'm hearing confidence. Like, all those things are synonymous with what you just explained, because there is a level of what I would call just conviction around what your solution is. Because let's just be honest here. In the financial advice industry, we're selling thin air. We are. I'm sorry. You're selling the promise of transformation in the future.
Yep.
Sometimes you get to put a product with it, like life insurance or annuity or something, but that's not what people are buying. And if you think they're buying that, you're in the wrong industry. to say that. You are selling thin air, my friend. And I'm only saying that because not to demean what we offer to people at all, but just to give people a crystal clear picture of how difficult this is, and underscoring what you're talking about right now. Because if you can't sell conviction, or sell the level of conviction, and this is the reason why I tell people, hire your own financial advisor or go through and create your own financial plan, because you need to know what it's like to sit on the other side of the table.
Yeah. I would go further and say you must hire another financial advisor, and they must be independent of you, and you must pay them. Because if you don't do all three of those things, you're not really consuming advice in the same way. And you bring your spouse and you trust their advice and you let them actually be your advisor. Now, do you need them to manage your money? Not necessarily. I don't care if you have a firm that does that already. You're not going to pay extra for that. But find an hourly advisor, right? There's plenty of hourly advisors out there who would love to work with you. I promise. There are advisors out there who specialize in working with advisors. Find one of those. I don't really care. Find someone who's the least like you as possible. Find the person that's the most like your spouse who doesn't manage the money. That's find someone for them. Because look, so you're going to die, right? You're probably going to die before your spouse because you're doing all the financial work. So you're stressed out all the time, right? You're going to die first. They're going to need someone to take care of them. And it's not going to be like some junior advisor in your firm. That's stupid. Someone independent who can then give the advice. You should sell that. You, the inheritor, needs to sell that firm. And the advisor in that firm ain't going to give you that same advice. I guarantee it.
That's
so hard agree with you on that one. That is critical. And I think look, if you want me to take the hot take, I think it's malpractice not to have your own financial advisor when you're a financial advisor. In the same way that if I hired a therapist and I said, "Are you in therapy yourself?" and they said no, I'd fire them immediately. I would never work with a therapist who didn't have a therapist.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
That's
I agree.
Nuts. Right?
There are some things where you got to eat your own cooking.
And this is any professional services. That's true. Lawyers don't represent themselves, and doctors don't operate on themselves. Give me a break.
Yeah. I think
anyway, back to the sales skills, right? That's level one, right? Sell for yourself, be able to engender trust in the person you're talking to. That's a primary skill of advice, in my opinion.
Yes, totally agree.
So second level.
Okay.
This is a higher level sales skill that maybe a quarter of advisors need, right? And you only need this if you're going to run a team of advisors. And so every firm owner needs to be able to do this, right? If you want to grow big enough. And anyone inside of a bigger firm who wants to run a team and mentor and supervise advisors needs to have this skill. And that is have that same conversation, except instead of me saying, Dom, you're going to work with me, I'm going to be your advisor. I'm the best. I'm going to say, Dom, you're going to work with my colleague over here, Dylan. Dylan's going to be your advisor. And I'm not, but I'm around. You can always talk to me and call me anytime. That abstraction from you should trust me, look in my eyes, trusty,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is a different skill to be able to sell for other people. That is a more true traditional sales skill, right? You have to learn some sales techniques in order to do that. The ability to transfer trust to someone else is something that is hard to do at the beginning of your career before you have a lot of experience. And it's hard to do without really, really studying it and learning and trying and practicing. So that's a second level sales skill. What do you think about that?
No, I think so. I think to your point, it's not for everybody because everybody doesn't want to run a team. I know I was intentional with my build. Is like I learned very early, call it clairvoyance, self-awareness, whatever. I was just like, I'm not a good manager of people. I'm more like a Michael Jordan who like I can do it myself, but I'm going to be frustrated trying to teach you after you don't get it after the first time. Like I'm just going to be frustrated.
Yep.
If you don't fall into the category of one of my 3 children, I don't have any patience for you. So I'm being honest. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
I'm just like, I hurt more feelings than anything. So I was like, I'm not going to be able to manage people. And more than that, because that makes me just sound like a really surly dude. But I think I just realized that I run really fast and I don't always have the capacity to slow down, turn around with you and say, are you going to keep up? Like, that's just not me. And so I knew I couldn't run a firm. I couldn't run a firm like not like that. So you're right. I think there is a certain disposition of people that I've seen before where they just love to cultivate, they love to mentor, and they love to transfer trust, and they just love to elevate other people like that. And they're great at it. And I'm so glad there's people like that because there's people like me that won't do it.
So that's second level sales skill, right?
Yep.
And then the highest level sales skill that is probably the hardest one to do unless you just have a natural knack for it. And some people have a natural knack for it. And that's the actual like rainmaking business development. And I separate that out and kind of generating the leads for your business. And that's done by either time or reputation, right? So if you have a really, really good at managing your reputation, getting the word out about you, doing the YouTube shows, like being the person that someone's like, I need a financial advisor. Well, I'm going to call Dom because I've seen all his stuff. And at the very least, he'll know where I should go. Right. Like, so you're going to get all those leads flow to you because people trust your reputation. Right. They've never met you, but they want to know what you have to say anyway. And then also the going to events, talking to people, the elevator pitch, the sitting on a plane, person sit down next to you and it's like, what do you do? And not saying I'm a financial advisor to shut the conversation down, because that's the fastest way to shut any conversation down is tell someone you're a financial advisor or that you sell insurance or that whatever, that they're like, hey, you, right. But instead, like, what do you do? And you say, hey, can I tell you a story? And they're like, what? I asked you what you did for a living. You want to tell me a story? I'm like, yeah. You want to hear an interesting story? They're like, yeah. And then I say, well, my father was a hippie. So of course, naturally I became a CPA. Right. And now we're going to talk the whole stupid plane ride because I made that mistake. You know what I mean? But that's what it takes to go out there and do that networking and business development, is that like living your life in public so that people know who you are, that you are legit actually telling people who you are for real, but doing that publicly as opposed to hiding in your cave and not having people know who you are. Right. That's that third level business development rainmaking skill that if you really want to make the big bucks, you need to be that. Right.
And I think there's a couple ways. I would totally agree with the methods that you said, or you just need to have a big black card limit or checkbook, because I'm thinking about people like, and I think you know both of these guys. So Gabriel Shaheen of Falcon Wealth Planning spends 7 figures a year now on marketing, and he gets like 3,500 leads a month. James Cannoli does Root Financial, and he has over $1 billion in management, and he started through his YouTube channel. And if you talk to either one of these guys, they are not that personality you would think that's Rainmaker, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean,
like, so, reputation, so people call them. Now you're kind of describing what I would put off to the side, which is marketing and branding. So like that third level business development sales skill, like when you're Edelman, even though your company's named after you, you're now doing branding. You've become a persona as opposed to a person in public. And so I'd say those are related but different. Like if you have enough money, you can create whatever marketing channel you want, and I guarantee you'll find clients. You just have to spend enough money on it. That may or may not have a good ROI, right? Depending on how much money you're spending for every lead. But you certainly anyone could do that. That's a marketing sales skill that honestly, like when you're starting to spend that money, you have professionals involved who are doing that for you, right?
Yeah, but I know the interesting about if as long as he's telling the truth, I have no reason to think he's not. But like Gabriel, like he was doing it when he really couldn't afford it. Like so he was
for sure, absolutely.
So and I think, and the only point reason why I bring that up is I think a lot of advisors are afraid to push that button with marketing because they're like, it might not work, and it's like it probably won't at first, and you'll just have to keep on doing it.
It takes years.
Yes, it takes years exactly. So. But those skills, let's pivot back to what you were saying. So I think, the ability to be, if people want to call it, charismatic or whatever, I think just to be honest, you just got to be genuinely curious. Like when I was talking to Carl Richards about this, he's like, that's one of the best skills a financial advisor can have is to be genuinely curious, 100%. Right? You wouldn't meet someone to manage their money and meet him at Starbucks and just shove the Wall Street Journal in their hand and be like, hey, I should manage your money. You see what the market's doing. Like you would see what interests them. You would tell them what interests you. You would enjoy the relationship building journey that this trust exchange happens. And then that the perfect example of this. So a guy I met through my wife's networking thing, we all four of us, her, me, and some other person, and him, sitting at a table, and we get matched up because he's in banking, which the organizer thought that meant finance, which it does, but not for this conversation. And he likes golf. I'm not a good golfer, but I know golf. So we talk, we have a conversation, we meet for coffee after that. And he started telling me about his investment strategy. So tell me more about your thing. And then he tells me about his investment strategy. And I tell him I'm getting out the business, but I have this really interesting arc of a story. And we meet again. And so now he's going to become a client. I'm like, look, dude, I'm actually retiring. So like I'm letting you know up front that you're going to get handed off to a different advisor. And he's like, yeah, I know, but like you're really competent. You're doing the things that you said, you've shown me this and I trust you. And so I really want to work with you. And if you don't mind finding the person for me that's going to you're going to hand me off to, then I'm cool with that.
Yep.
And that's what this is about.
Yep.
It's about trust and relationship. And if you can't, I don't know, if you're not curious enough and you don't like people or something, I mean, you probably need to shy away from
just go do tax. It's right here. Like here's financial planning, here's tax. You look at the same stuff, you do the same things. This one, you are valued if you don't talk to people, and this one, you are valued if you do talk to people. You know what I mean? So like, just get good at tax. Cool. Make way more money. Honestly, as a technician in tax versus a technician in financial planning, a technician in tax has unlimited upside, right? Mm-hmm. All you need to do is find one loophole, and then you make millions of dollars, right? A technician in financial planning has a really, really low ceiling. And that may not be true forever, but it's certainly true now. You're not going to make more than 125, maybe 150 grand a year if you're lucky. If you're not
the way owning AI is doing things now, I'm sorry, but AI is, oh my gosh. Whew.
Yeah. So Vilas had a question. Well, how do you learn if your firm doesn't have a strong sales training program? And I think the whole point of this whole conversation is there's no such thing as a sales training program for that core level skill. For the business networking and the like selling for others, there are programs you can go to learn some techniques about when do you say this? How do you say this? Role playing it, right? But for that first level sales skill of like, how do I get people to want to hire me as a financial advisor when I'm relatively new to my career? Well, How do you convince anyone to do anything for you? How do you make friends? Have you ever dated anyone? Because it's the same skill set, right? You're just doing different activities. You're meeting someone for the first time, explaining who you are, being transparent, being vulnerable, asking lots of questions about the other person instead of just talking about yourself the whole time, right? Not annoying them with things that they don't care about, right? These are all just core human interaction skills. So just like, I think the best thing to do is if you're having trouble with any of that, go take an improv class.
I'll do you one better. So going back to the Seth Godin interview, so I'll have to pull up the thing, but if you just Google conversations for financial professionals, Seth Godin and Dominique Henderson, he gave some of the best advice that I still use and repeat for career changers now. And I think it would help Vilas, which was, he's like, if you want to be a financial advisor, and this is like right pre-COVID, he's like, if you want to be maybe it was after COVID, I can't remember. But anyways, he was like, if you want to be a financial advisor, what you should do is organize 2 to 3 Zoom meetings of different circles of people. And you are like the matchmaker slash moderator slash maven. And you're organizing one maybe around employee benefits, and then another one around 401k selection, and another one around, I don't know, education planning. And you are the curator for the topics, and you basically drum up the agenda with whatever we're going to talk about today, and you organize your friends or whoever, centers of influence people, to get into those things. If you can do that successfully, you could be a financial advisor.
Such Absolutely. A great idea. Oh man, that is genius. If you're studying for the CFP exam, find 5 other people who are also studying for the CFP exam, and then go as part of your networking, just go to those firm owners, any of your dream firms, and say, hey, is there anyone at your firm who's willing to come talk to our study group for an hour? Every single one of them will say yes.
Yeah.
I promise. Or they might say no just because of timing, but they're not going to say no because of lack of interest. Right? Because look, most of the time working in a financial advisory firm, like any other job, is a little annoying. Your staff or your colleagues probably annoy you. If they chew loudly one more time, you might stab them in the face. You know what I mean? Like, these are people you're around all the time, and you're just like, I'm so over it. And some like fresh-faced person comes over to you and says, hey, I love what your firm is doing. You guys are the best. You're my number one dream firm in the whole country. Could someone at your firm spare an hour to talk to 6 upcoming financial advisor candidates who might want to also work for you? If they say no, they should shut down their business.
and by the way, that's a red flag. You don't want to work there.
Totally. 100%. Right. Yeah. And they're going to say yes, because they're going to go, oh my God, that's going to be the best day ever. Because it's the best day ever. Mm-hmm. And if you're at if you're hearing this and you're at a financial advisory firm and you're like, I just don't have time for that. Yeah, you do. Have time for it. Just don't do some other stupid meeting, right? Cancel employee reviews at your firm because they're totally useless. And I just saved you 40 hours a year of time at least, right? Just cancel them. Don't replace them with anything. Just don't do them, right? And you have 40 hours more time a year, and you should spend every single one of those hours with candidates instead of your employees. And I guarantee you everyone will be happier.
Yeah, just a note on productivity. All meetings on your calendar going forward should be half the time that they are. I bet you can force yourself to do it in half the time. I did it, and it was a game changer for me. It was a game changer for me. People are like, hey, yeah, I'm going to put an hour. I was like, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If you can't say it in 30 minutes, we're good.
Yep. Yeah. Now, I make my clients book more time than they think they need.
Well, no, client meetings are different. I'm talking about the
internal meetings. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And you don't need any. I'll go further. Here's another one. Okay. So we'll get off of all this. Let's do another hot take. How do you like this one?
Yeah.
Every employee review reduces motivation and productivity. You could delete all employee reviews and compensation reviews and just delete them all. Eliminate all of them. And never, ever give anyone feedback on their performance outside of kind of HR related issues. You know what I mean? Where something is bad, but no one should get any productivity feedback or job feedback one-on-one. They should get it in a group.
It sounds more Bridgewater, Ray Dalio stuff. going towards that range.
Yeah, I don't read any of his stuff, but
Okay, I'm a big fan of open architecture transparency, meaning that everybody kind of knows what everybody's doing. There's no secrets and no silos.
yeah,
The Byzantine structure of, hey, let's got to do the employee review, and you never get all the way great marks because we got to have a reason to keep the carrot in front of you. I think that's stupid. I would agree with that.
yeah,
It, I'm gonna. This term is overused, but I have to use it here because it's the best way to define it, the quickest, if with my limited vocabulary, at least, is culture, right? So if you have a culture of, hey, day one, JD, what we do here, there are no silos, like everything's open, like every meeting that we have in this firm, everybody can access at all times.
yeah,
And I can access your meeting and ask you why you did something that particular way. Like if you establish that from day one, I think there's no problem. And that works beautifully because
or change to it, right?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
make-
yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
everybody,
Well,
this is what we're doing now.
you might have to fire some people. Just be ready for that. You're gonna have some
100%.
turnover. You're gonna have some
Is that
turnover.
bad? You know, like,
No, it might not be.
like, it's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
good.
that's where you're moving
Yeah.
towards. But yeah, I agree. I've when I was in corporate or in larger firms, the employee reviews largely they were the thing I knew I needed to do it in order to get my bonus check.
Yep,
But they weren't helpful professionally.
totally. So I
My
said, delete them.
mastermind, which operates more like what I'm talking about, has been the biggest benefit for me over the last 4 years.
Totally.
By
Yeah,
far.
well, they give you feedback in public.
Yeah.
And by public, I mean in a group.
Sure.
I don't mean like, hey, everyone, 50 people in the firm, let's pile in the town hall, and now we're all going to talk about Jim. You know,
Yeah,
like that's not what I mean.
No, I get it.
Right?
But no, it's
But like
it's
your
gotta-
team, your core team that's working
Yep.
together on clients, yeah, do it all right there.
Yeah, it's the same principle in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's that old book. Like it's that mastermind concept where there is no secrets per se. People have enough context on you to give you good advice and hold you accountable. Because both are key. They got to be able to hold you accountable. You gotta lend yourself to being held accountable, and the advice has got to be good. And the advice can only be good if you guys continue to sharpen each other and they know context on your situation. They can be like, Dom, 6 months ago, you said you're going to do this and you never did it. Like, what's holding you back right now?
Exactly.
And then I can be like, whatever I say. So I think those type of, I don't know, man. It seems like the bigger you get, those are harder to do. But is that true? Because Bridgewater Associates was like over 200 people and they did it that way. So I think people lie to themselves about how hard it is to implement or continue.
It's not that hard. It's just about giving the people who know what's up the authority to make decisions. Now, all that said, you should be able to give one-on-one feedback, and you must give one-on-one feedback that is directed by the person asking for feedback. So I would never go to someone who worked for me and said, we need our one-on-one, right? Because that's intimidating. But for them to come to me and say, hey, can I just get a few minutes of your time? Well, then, yeah, of course, I need to spend as much of that time as possible doing that. Right?
There's a lot of formats for this. I know at one point I was I had drunk the 360 feedback Kool-Aid, which is more solicited by the person asking the feedback, where it's like, hey, in these particular areas, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? And typically you do it with somebody, in your work environment, in your personal life, But I think this could work really well for just exclusively a work environment. Because here's the deal. Like, how do you grow if you don't get feedback? How do you grow if you're not open to feedback? Like,
totally. You need both.
like, how does that happen? Like,
right? You don't need it not on your schedule. You need it when you're like, I need some feedback. And so engendering a culture and building a culture and demanding from your people that they ask for feedback instead of having feedback forced on them is going to be the way to increase that internal motivation and not the external.
Yeah.
I think back in your life. When was the last time that you got good advice from someone that you didn't ask for? That they just came to you and said, who is, especially in a position of authority over you, right? So not like a good friend because you get that all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Someone who was above you in an organization who came to you and said, hey, I need to give you some feedback. When was the last time you got good feedback that way? Ever. Your whole life.
I don't think I've had it.
Ever. Because that's the point.
Unsolicited feedback is you're already a little prickly and a little like on edge, right? To be like, or on guard probably is a better way to say that.
I would go further and say, as a rule, unsolicited feedback is criticism. By by definition, right? That if you are offering unsolicited feedback, you are criticizing, and that is it. Even if it's positive, quite honestly, like unsolicited, you're doing great. There's a level of that. So it's like, well, I know,
We used to tell Dominique Jr. When he was trying to help his sister, like, Dominique, if they don't receive it as help, it's not help. It's called harassment.
Yep, exactly. They will ask. If someone wants to know what you think, guaranteed they're going to ask you.
I don't know. It's some movie. It's like, if I want to know what you think, I'll tell you.
Exactly. But that's good. And I now think about those times where you went to someone and said, hey, I need some feedback. Can you tell me, like, am I off base on this one? And they gave you harsh criticism. You're like, thank you so much. Oh my God, I missed it completely because you asked for it.
Yeah, I think there's something to this, right? Because first of all, I think generally speaking, and I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but my generation was brought up where you just accept these kind of things and you don't cry about it, right? Like there's a softness to this, generation. All my kids are like this, where they've had to really work towards uh, not being so offendable, especially when feedback is coming from someone they love, like their parents or something like that. And granted, I'm not the dad that's like, you need to do this. Like we got to a different space. My kids are grown adults now. But I guess my point I'm making here is like I think everybody has blind spots, right? Like, I hope maybe your listeners are familiar with Johari window, right? But this is like a psychological type of tool that people use where you have like these 4 quadrants, right? And these blind spots are those parts that a lot of us can't see. It's almost like the spinach in your teeth type of stuff. But there's another quadrant there that's called the unknown. It's like it's not known to you, so Dominique doesn't know it, and it's not known to others, and it's how you reach your best potential. You need to lend yourself to accountability in your life so people can help you reach that. Like they're going to get to the blind spots. They're going to hopefully have those people that will tell you got a booger in your nose, or you got spinach in your teeth, that type of stuff. That's the easy stuff. Yeah, but you never get to the good stuff, which is the stuff that you don't know you have inside of you, and they don't know unless you lend them to have enough time around you to speak to you. That's where my mastermind helps. Like that's where that helps. But you have to be open to that kind of stuff. And I think generally speaking, today people are a lot more prickly than they were when I was growing up. So
I was always prickly. So I don't know. I'd get feedback. I would just, like I wasn't really interested in that. And then actually Angie Herbers taught me, like late in my career, I'm in my, 30s or early 40s, when I finally learned this lesson, which is when someone gives you feedback, you say, thank you. And she gave me that lesson because like no one can give you feedback like Angie Herbers, you know what I mean? Like she's good at, she just gives it to you, right? And it was she's one of my most valued relationships of all time, right? Because she would just tell me. And at one point she's like, dude, say thank you right now. I think we were in a conversation and she was in it. And I get a text from her that says, say thank you. I'm like, oh, it hit me right in that moment. I'm like, I would have had such an easier life if I had known this 10 years, 20 years ago. Holy crap. It is literally the most valuable thing. And it's because if someone gives you feedback and you don't, then they're never going to give you honest feedback again, ever.
This is true. And that's and to your point with that, I'm glad you shared this story. Like I those instances where people want to invest in you and then they see you not accepting it right, and then they give you even another correction because they're like, I want to keep doing this, but not if you keep on acting this way, type of deal.
Totally.
Right? That's a gift. Right? That's a gift. And so no, that's really good. I didn't get to get to know Angie, but I could see that about her.
You got it. Yeah, you saw it. It's not. She's not all that subtle about it. She just gives you
no,
she doesn't know how not to be fully honest with you. You know what I mean? And it's one of her absolute best traits. And I value it so highly because most people don't.
Yeah.
right? Because I am prickly and I'm intimidating. They tell me, I don't know why, but like, you know, yeah, I don't take feedback well. I'm bad at it, right? I know what I'm like talking about already.
Mhm.
That said, I take feedback great from people who are not people who I work for, right? Peers and people who work for me, I take feedback really, really well. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes not, you know. It is not my
Disclaimer
strongest suit.
after
Let's just put it
disclaimer.
that way. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
remembering to say thank you is the number one, because to your point, if people throw your words back at you and you give them feedback, you're not going to do it again. And 90% of the time, you probably shouldn't have in the first place because it's probably unsolicited. And that's, you know, what we talked about. But
Yeah.
yeah, so there you go. The most humbling thing I ever did, I was in a men's group and we had this exercise, and it was go find 3 people that you just ask to give you feedback on you. People who are peers, not people who report to you, not people who you report to, but just people
Mhm.
in your life. Sit down with them and say, I need the harshest feedback you can possibly give me. All the things that I'm doing wrong, please. Like, I'm going to
Mm.
say thank you for all of it. Just give it all to me. Our relationship will be great. Don't worry. Like, throw it at everything you've ever noticed that I do wrong. I need you to fill it up. Right. Like,
I wonder how
I'm
hard
doing a thing.
people
I'm doing
find
this
being
exercise.
honest with that. Like,
Oh, you
no
got to pick the
holds
right
barred.
person. You know what I mean? Like, you got to
Yeah.
go to the person you think's going to give it to you. That's part of the exercise. Like, think in your life who's going to give you that kind of
That's what
feedback. And then go after.
when you're saying that, I'm going through my Rolodex of people and I'm saying, who have I allowed to get close enough to me with that level of context that will be 100% honest? Because that's the type of work I would need to do in order to lend myself to those type of
Yep.
relationships, right?
Or just find people like me or you who, if someone asked you that question, you're like, all right, let's go.
Well, but
That'll
that's
be fun.
true to a certain extent. But how helpful would it be unless I have enough context, right? Because not
Well,
that I'm
does it
trying to,
matter?
huh?
Like, because your feedback's your feedback. This is what you saw. It doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if it's true for you, because
Explain
that's
that a
how
little bit
they're
more.
being perceived by you. And I don't
So,
care if you do
so
them
I
for a
would come to
month or a
you.
year.
I
It
would come
doesn't
to you and
matter.
I'd say, "Hey, JD, give me the 3 harshest, or give me the harshest piece of feedback that you have for me, based on what, like my work, my I guess it just depends on what
Just
sphere
on
you
my
know the best.
perception.
Your
Right?
perception
So you
of
got to
me.
find people who have a relationship with you that you care about how you're being perceived. You know what I mean? So I went to some guy who was
Oh, okay, that's
another
a big
advisor in
thing.
my firm, right?
That's good context right there, because I don't, and I'm gonna have to watch how I say this, but I really don't care how people perceive me.
Yeah, that's good. And that actually is the first step to having this exercise go well. But what's interesting is you don't care how people perceive you. That doesn't mean you don't care how you're being perceived. And
That's
it
true.
doesn't mean
That's
that
true.
knowing how you're perceived wouldn't be incredibly valuable. And in fact, if you don't care how you're perceived, knowing how you're perceived is even more valuable, because then you can use that kind of feedback loop and how you're being perceived as a tool to make yourself better in the ways that you want to be better. Because a lot of the stuff you're going to hear is like, wait, you thought what? When I said that? I didn't mean that at all. Okay, I'm not going to say it like that anymore.
No,
Right?
you're, and I think I've had too much hubris around this, to be honest, because I was thinking about like how basically in my mind I've created a filter for the type of people that I would ask this for, which breaks the whole
Yeah.
exercise because I filtered the people that I want to not give me a filter. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
but I'm thinking about an exercise, and I won't go too much into it because it's a little sensitive. But a guy in my men's group was talking about this, and I don't think he asked this question, but it basically ended in the same way where he was told, "Hey, as as a white male, you can't say this to a black individual like that. You can't say that because it means this most of the time." And he was
Yep.
like, "Dude, I I didn't know that. Like, I don't want to say that." And
Totally.
therefore he stopped saying it.
Yeah, of
And
course.
so I think that's a good example what you're talking about.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just had a post on LinkedIn that I got, had some interesting discussions where I said, hey, if you're talking about politics on LinkedIn, I'm going to unfollow you. And I had a bunch of people come back and like, but, I want to talk about my values, and I want to talk about LGBT rights, and I want to talk about all these other social issues. And I'm like, I'm sorry, we were using the word politics very differently. Because
Mm,
from my perspective, as again the cis het white male guy, right? No one's looking at me, and no one's judging me inherently for anything,
yeah.
right? Other than my actions. When I say stuff, people aren't immediately jumping at me saying, "Don't bring politics into this." Whereas
Mm,
when some of the women in particular who were commenting are like, we get we get accused of playing politics because we exist. And we say we want more women to work in this industry, and they say, "Oh, leave all the politics out of it." And no one ever says that to me. You know what I
mm.
mean? So I don't equate the word politics with expressing my values or solving
No,
social
I
problems,
totally
right?
get
Because
that.
no one's ever told me that's politics, because it isn't when it comes from me. When it comes from you, or it comes from them, or when it comes from other people who, don't have all my privilege, that they say it and then get shut down because they're bringing politics into it, because they say women have the right to exist
No, I'm
in a
glad you
professional
made that
space.
clarification with them because I often say we're using the same vocabulary with different definitions, like
Totally.
often. So
But I didn't. I got that feedback from them, and at first I'm like, I'm just going to delete this. This is just a shit show. And then I'm like, no, this is some good conversation. So I then engaged with every single
mm,
person who commented, said this is what I meant, and like, wow, that perspective is really crazy, because I wouldn't even think, because that's not in my mind. That's not what the word politics means.
yeah,
Politics is our legislative and judicial and executive process, and how there are political solutions to social problems, but not every social problem is political. And they're like, no, every social problem is political when I say it. And so it's, I would never get that feedback unless, in this case, I didn't ask for it, but I invited it because I posted that thing. Just posting publicly is basically asking for feedback.
yeah.
And they gave it to me, and I really valued it. And it really made me go, yeah, shit, it's true. Right. That's every aspect of their life. All those people who commented that were like, "Oh my god, that's so disappointing you'd say that." And I'm like, "Why? You like seeing pictures of Trump's face on some like Politico article that someone pasted to LinkedIn?" That's what I thought I was saying I don't want to see.
Mm,
And they're like, "No, the people who say that are the ones who say, oh, mentioning that you're trans is a political statement."
mm.
And I'm not saying they're wrong. They're right. That's the
That's just their
perspective that
view.
they have
Yeah,
to live with. And it's not
yeah,
even their view, it's their experience. My
yeah,
experience is different because I don't get harassed that way.
yeah. I think it's good to have that type of it's good to have perspective like that because I think there's two tacks, and I've seen too much of the former versus the latter. The former is I'm gonna gain all this knowledge and I'm gonna just know I'm gonna be woke, right? And I'm gonna know everything so that I can navigate. Where the latter to me is just, I'm not gonna know everything. Sometimes I'm gonna misconstrue things and I'm not gonna know the context. And I'm just gonna be open enough to hear somebody else's perspective instead of being closed-minded. Like that's easier for me, right? And
Absolutely.
I don't know why I tend towards that way. I have a somewhat of an interesting background. Like I don't have a typical African American background, if that is a monolith out there.
Sure.
But like I was a military kid. I didn't have the luxury of trying to like pick only black friends. Like we were on a military base and we were in Germany. So like like what
Those
are you gonna
10
do here,
people
right?
were all friends, or
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah,
enemies
yeah,
in
yeah.
the
We're
bush,
all
right?
equal
Yeah.
here. Like, or I'm in Hawaii and I'm trying to fit in with the Samoans and the Polynesians because otherwise, you're gonna get beat up every day, right? So uh, I didn't have the luxury of making what I would call ethnicity race. Like, there's one human race. That's the race, right? There's, I don't call black and white and I don't call those races because that's not really what it is, in my opinion. So, all that to say, like, I've just had this idea about, and granted, that doesn't mean I don't see the issues. I think a lot of people conflate that. They conflate that with, oh, you have that view, you're blind to this particular institutional racism over here. I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm actually in some instances experiencing it, but I'm navigating it and living it a different way than you are because I have a totally different paradigm.
Mhm. Yeah. We all get to have our perspective at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it is. All right. What else do we want to get in trouble talking about today? We got like 15 minutes left. I know there's other stuff you have in mind that we could certainly get yelled at for.
What do you think about this? Let's talk about AI. We have to talk about AI for a while. Matter of fact, I think that was the original thing that we were supposed to talk about.
It was, yeah. I forgot about that.
So, okay, so I use AI pretty heavily.
Yeah, same.
And I can go into, full transparent on what I use it for. It's helped my life tremendously. I think it has at $100 a month, it is way better than hiring another person to be a second brain for me, which is what it's often done. Just because, I mean, my reality is I run two businesses, actively involved in both of them, and I've largely done this solo for a long time, and so I use it that way. I'm curious, I don't think it has any merit because this is a human industry. There's so many things though, like in all disruptors that have ever existed throughout time. Um, I think let's just call it 26 things in order to deliver financial advice, right? And what we're seeing now, well, let me back up. This industry is 60 years old, right? Financial advice industry, 60, 70 years old. Those 26 things used to all have to do manually, like all of them. Now we're getting to a point now where AI comes along and we get to actually automate some of those things. We'll never be able to automate all of those. And matter of fact, the 26 things starts to, depending on the sophistication and the level of information going out, it becomes 27 and then 30 and then 36. So the way I'm thinking about it in my mind, AI will never catch up to all things you need to do to be a good financial advisor to deliver on the promise of what you do. Now, if it does do all the things that you promise to a client for a fee, then you're going to be, I'm sorry for you. Like you need to do more things because that's your fault. That's your fault totally if it caught up to you. But that's the way I look at it. I don't really see what everybody else sees about it taking over jobs and all that other kind of. It's going to take over the stuff that could be automated, that should be automated, to be quite honest. I love, and I'll say this and let you chime in. I love Altruist. I love the setup from the fact that I don't have to bring a physical paper statement and mail it somewhere or scan it or fax it somewhere. That, by the way, lends itself to all types of fraud that particular way. And I can just put the account number in and do an ACAT and it'll be done in 3 days. Like, I really like that. That helps me as a financial advisor.
Totally. Just like every other technology that's ever started, there is the technology on one side, which generally, let's take away the military aspect of most technology has death implications, right? So let's just set that aside for a minute because there's no way to work around that. You know what I mean? Every piece of technology can be used to create death, and if you're against killing people, then every technology is potentially bad, right? The wheel is one of the primary military technologies that's ever been invented. You know what I mean? It was the original thing that made some militaries better because they had better vehicles. Sure, all of it's like that. So taking aside we could use this for death or for oppression and all that other stuff. Yes, every new technology can be used for that. Set aside for just a sec because I can't. But who am I in charge of that? Like, I don't know how to do any of that. So then you have the technology itself, which in general is positive, right? It makes people's lives better most of the time, not every time, but most of the time. And then you have the people that have their hands on the technology who are trying to extract value from it for themselves and not everyone else, right? So business practices are generally, with the newest technology, usually pretty evil, right? Until regulation comes in and stops them from their worst excesses, right? And that's, if you go back in history, you'll see it all the time. A new technology comes out, everybody checks it out, lots of bad stuff happens, and then people come in and go, yo, guys, we can't do it like this. We have to do it like this, and then everyone will be safe. And then you make a bunch of changes, and then things start to work in a more civilized way. And by civilized, I mean in a way that is controlled by community standards. You know what I mean? That we all agree, we should work it like this.
Yeah.
Right. I have a lot of friends who are artists, and I have a lot of friends that are in business. And every one of my artist friends isn't rejecting AI necessarily, but understands the ethical issues of using copyrighted material that is created by artists in order to remove artists from the equation. Right. using this technology to create better art is not the problem. Using this technology to remove artists from the equation is a problem, right? And is a big problem for huge swaths of the culture. And they have become, by and large, anti-AI in general because of how people are using it. So there's huge communities that are just opposed to the general usage of large language models to do generative art, right? And I respect them and I respect their position. And I am not an artist who spent my whole year learning how to paint or do photography or all this other stuff that I am trying to be actively removed from the equation. So that I get. Again, business practices, it's not the tech. Because I have other artist friends who are using this tech for like to do amazing things, right? And elevate their art form and speed up their ability to do commercial art while still doing art, right? And every single person I know on the business side is like, yes, please give me more, right? I don't know anyone on the business side outside of compliance concerns because they're dealing with other regulations and privacy concerns are like, well, I don't want everyone to see my client's stuff. Outside of those concerns, I haven't met a whole lot of people who are like, no, this is evil on the business side. They exist, I'm sure. But when I talk, like maybe there's 10% of those that hate it on the business side, maybe 10% love it on the art side, right? It really is this big divide. And I'm sitting in the middle of it because most of my friends are not in business. I don't have business friends. I have like artists. I'm the weird business guy with hanging out with a bunch of Burning Man artist types. You know what I mean? It's like just my community that I hang with.
I can
More
see
on that side. And I'm like using AI for coding and business automation and converting PowerPoint to this other format or taking a, template document and anonymizing it and making it applicable. Like I'm using it for a bunch of stuff to save me time that doesn't need human judgment to create value. It's just stupid converting from one file format to another or finding old files and like, where is that? I talk a lot about the library function of our society, where like storing information and finding information is one of the hardest things in today's society because we're creating so much content. There's no way to find it, and Google algorithms aren't good enough anymore. We have too much content now to go through. They can't do it on that algorithmic rating anymore. We need synthesis, and AI is really good at that, and it's probably the thing it's best at. Is finding a bunch of information and pointing you at the things that you need to know for you to then go do further research.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan of it. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. And I see a bunch of people who want to create they're like, oh, I'll just replace Salesforce with my own CRM that I'm coding. I'm like, the hard part isn't building. Kits is talking about that. You know what I mean? Building it's easy. Like teaching all your people to use it and making sure it doesn't have bugs. Like that's hard. And you don't know what you're doing. So maybe don't do that. But putting it in place to convert that CSV file into an uploadable file that can go into QuickBooks every month. Well, yeah, you can do that and automate that in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you should definitely be doing that. So I don't know.
Not that this will be done, but I can see this as a very good use of AI and a way to unburden, probably get rid of 90% of most compliance departments. You ready for this?
Every advisor who's going to watch this is like, you save this for the end?
So I've given AI enough context after working months and months on it that it knows enough about me. Because couldn't you do this hypothetically with the way that your firm interprets the marketing rules and hypothetically build something that all content could just be approved through after it goes through the AI engine? You don't need compliance review anymore. You can just build that into AI. So my chief compliant officer role that now my department has ballooned in excess to the fact that an advisor that he or she wants to put out content and put their name out there and attract their ideal client profile, and they don't want to just use the company approved brochures, and now it takes them 4 weeks to get something approved in compliance. And by the time they get it approved and posted, the news is gone, right? The news cycle has passed them by. Why not build something into AI for your firm based on your culture, your principles, and the current marketing rules, and have AI look at this stuff and approve it instantaneously? Matter of fact, you can just deploy it for each advisor to use if they want to use it, and it automatically approves it or flags it and says you need to change this. That's a good use of AI. Now, again, it will probably get rid of 90% of compliance departments because you no longer need review and a team of 15 to do it.
Yeah, here's my problem with that is I don't know that the SEC or FINRA would agree with you. And when you're dealing with government
But none of those people run
regulation,
firms, so they don't count. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It'll censor you. We'll put it in later. But like that's the problem. Anytime we're dealing with something where there are external consequences, well, that's on you. Now, could we speed it up so that you can go from 3 compliance people to 1? Yes. Right. Because doing the initial review and creating a report for you is really critical. And I think you're seeing a lot of this in like in coding, right? Where you get the and I'll use some coding terms real quick, but they do the, you're in GitHub and you create a pull request, and that is like, hey, these are the changes I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
You can have AI go in and review it and review your code base and tell you everywhere there might be a conflict or anywhere where it might break something. But someone's got to hit the OK button. And if you're talking about a production environment, well, do you really want it to automatically click the OK button? Or do you want to get to the point where you can go, I read your report, you called out the things, you highlighted the issues, you said I should look at this, I looked at that. No, that won't be a problem. Okay. Right? Like if it were my firm, I want that at least. I want the person at the end to go, I got it. Right? In the same way for like trades, like trading, right? Would you trust it to do all the trading itself, or would you want the advisor to just to have the last little book and go, kink? If what you've done AI for is create the report.
This
right?
would be exclusive to the advisor. So here's my deal. Like, I think there's a happy middle to what you're saying. From me looking at, let's just say, Edward Jones advisors, and every advisor posting their new content within 3 minutes of each other, the same article. There's no differentiation for your ideal client avatar. That's you want to talk about crowding the industry with that 150,000 pieces of content I talked about earlier? That's trash. Sorry, EJ people who wrote it. It's trash.
Oh, trash. Yeah.
But and then you have the advisor that wants to go off left field and just create his own, podcast on YouTube talking about guarantees. No, not that either. But in the middle is a place where I don't have to spend an inordinate amount of time, and the news cycle passes me by the time it gets approved, because it's somebody back there that doesn't know what button to click or how to approve this stuff, or they're reading through the marketing rule for the first time because they're being trained, blah, 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 all the things. That's frustrating to the advisor because, like, you want me to bring in assets, but you're making it hard for me, right?
Yep.
So,
I mean, anything that involves a large language model analysis has a percentage failure, because fundamentally all this technology is just a really, really good prediction engine.
Yes.
It's saying, you're saying, I want something that looks like this. And it's saying there's a 99% chance this thing right here is what you're looking for.
You're right.
That means you have a
probabilistic versus deterministic. I totally agree with that.
Right. Yeah. And all of that, anything you have that needs a deterministic answer, which isn't necessarily compliance, because compliance is a judgment thing. Mm-hmm. But Vilas just had a comment, when the CCO's in handcuffs, they might feel differently, which is hilarious. You know what I mean? But that's the point. Like, anything that requires that, like if there's a real world consequence, if you hit that 1 or 2 or 9 or whatever % failure rate, well, yeah, that's a problem. Certain things in compliance, you might be willing to do that. And you say, hey, do a review, right? If you have, this confidence rating, then go ahead and automatically approve it. If there are any questions, then hold it and highlight that for the CCO so they have less stuff to review, and then have a 1 in 10 gets an internal audit that says, okay, that one gets sent to the CCO. So you have an internal audit process. So there are ways to do it to speed it up for sure.
Most platforms have this, like LinkedIn, Facebook, they already have this. Why do you think that some posts that you make get taken down? Like, they have these things in the background, large language models that say, if the post contains these words, any of these words, just kill it.
Or highlight it when I'm posting it, like it always does. It's like, hey, you're using some words in here that frequently get reported. I don't know if that happens to me more often than most people. I think it does, because I'm a little, but that's exactly how it's going to work, right? Actually, as the person's writing the content, the compliance review is going to come in and say, hey, you're saying this here, that's probably going to get flagged. You might want to redo it. And so then fewer stuff gets flagged. And so everything moves faster. Like moving the review process closer to the author and cutting out steps, I think AI is going to be genius for, especially around compliance.
Yeah.
But you're always going to want, and I think just the nature of the technology means that you're always going to want to have at least a final review at some point, human involvement, or you're going to be, in the same way that I would say that's going to be true for trading. I want human involvement by my advisor for trading. I don't want to just randomly guess what my thing should be. I want a human involvement. Speed it up as much as you want till it gets to you, because that's, the review is rarely the bottleneck. It's the creation and the, having to split the PDF into 3 different forms and delete that page, and the person can't remember what PDF software we're using anymore, that kind of stuff, where it's like, hey, extract page 2 from the PDF. Here it is, done. Like, that's really fast now. And we don't need all these other weird little tools. And that's where I think the biggest value is, or, and I get the social issues that the whole broken windows thing means. So I'm just, aside from the weird social issues, like looking for those little broken windows in your firm, that you might find 15 things that you're just living with that suck about your business that you're not fixing because it's annoying, right? Just like if I look around my office, I have these 3 boxes stacked over in the corner that have pictures and stuff in them I need to review, and my wife is going to yell at me if I don't get it done. You know what I mean? She won't yell. She's very nice. But like, there's stuff I need to do in my office, and my eyes just go like, "Pweek," and like, we don't see that. Like, we don't look over in that corner. That's the corner of shit that I don't want to know about,
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Using AI for that, I think is I think the number one thing that every firm should do. Find the techiest person, give them a Claude Code subscription, pay $200 a month for the Mac service. They can use Opus all day long, and just have them go in and figure out how to just take that stupid spreadsheet that someone has to do a VLOOKUP on every month and just automate it.
Yeah.
Because that stuff will save hours and hours of your staff time. And then
it reduces human error on the data input on the spreadsheet.
For sure. Because people generally suck worse than AI at that sort of activity.
Yeah.
No question. Now, I don't let AI write my emails for me, right? I let it write up my summary notes because I don't really read those anyway. And all I want to know is like, oh, what was the last meeting again? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we talked about that. You know what I mean? It's useful for that. But if I were writing something to send to a client, then, I might let it do a draft if it's a technical document, but never if it's a non-technical document.
Yeah.
No. You know what I mean?
Way too much nuance in context that needs to go into that. I agree. I totally agree.
Well, I'm just also a better writer than 60% of people. So if you rank your writing skill and you're a 7 or better out of 10, then AI is going to make you worse. If you're a 4, then AI is going to make you better. So because it's going to get you to the above average place. It's going to get you to a B- level of writing. But if you're an A writer, don't let it write for you, because you'll be a B- writer and you're worse.
I don't know that it'll ever replace me, because I mostly send Loom videos to my clients.
We'll replace that sooner.
if I'm typing something and it gets long, and I'm just like, okay, I have to. Never mind. I'll just record a video.
I'll just record it. Totally. Of course, they're going to say, "Oh, hey, Claude, can you summarize this video that Dom sent me?" I don't have time to watch the 2-hour thing anymore. So I imagine how most people are going to watch this content.
That's hilarious. Well, good stuff, man, my friend. Are we good?
Yeah. Well, we've gone over time even. This is one of those things we can just keep going forever, right?
Yeah,
I went 12 hours at the externship, so if I can, I never stop if I don't have to.
You've always been easy to talk to type of person, even when we first met. So I agree that we can go forever, but
anytime you want to come back, anytime.
Yeah. This is fun.
Do a weekly session. We'll do it. We can make it shorter in the future. We just come on every week. I heard this thing, hot take.
It's so funny. I thought I was going to give up my podcast days. I started a new YouTube channel at the beginning of the year. Of course, you invited me on here, and I have a weekly Friday thing with my business partner now, and we just talk about. We call it kind of like it hasn't come out yet, but maybe I can plug it here a little bit. It's like it's the back of the room stuff that nobody talks about or wants to talk about, right? It's what you would hear to advisors talking about at the back of the room at Future Proof or something like that with a scotch in their hand and maybe get some cigars and all the stuff that people are like, yeah, I feel that way. Why has nobody ever said
Totally.
that?
Totally. That's what I want to create. It's just the
I've, I've,
ability for
I've been in
people
the
to do
industry
that.
long enough that I have so many of
Oh
those in
yeah.
my head. So yeah, that's fun stuff. I love to talk about that stuff all day.
Anytime you want, anytime. I love it. And this is so easy. I have a guy, Dylan produces all my stuff. So like, I just show up like you do. It's great. I don't have to do anything. Just hang out for a couple hours. Are you kidding me? This is amazing.
Yeah, just show up and talk. I'm obviously pretty good at that. So
We have a good time. We'll start making a list of all the things you want to get in trouble about, and whenever you're ready to come back, we'll do it.
all right,
Any
man.
last things you want to say before you run off?
No, I think just circling back. So for the career changers that we talked to for half of this time almost, I do have some free resources that are on my channel and my YouTube channel. That stuff will always be free. You get a premium subscription, you don't have to watch the ads. So, but I've created so many things, and again, we've highlighted some stuff like Hannah's program is great, and Cody Garrett's program is great, and so there's so much stuff out there now. But at the end of the day, you can consume all the content you want, but you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and get some dirt under your fingernails at the end of the day. You are.
Yep,
You are.
absolutely. Yep. You get the opportunities you create for the most part, in my experience. All those links and all of Dom's stuff we'll post down in the comments in the chat, so everyone will be able to find it later. So thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking to you. It's been a great couple of years getting to know you better, and love the time we've been able to spend together, especially today is always super fun. So thank you for being on.
Great stuff, man. Have a good one.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.